So if you haven't come across it, it's a framework to help charities improve best practice in digital. It is used by a lot of charities across the UK, including the Scouts, which is why they're here today. And there's lots of best practice in there, whether you're a small or a large organisation. So we very much encourage you to take a look at that, and all the resources on that site are completely free and open.
So in terms of the case study, I've focused on 3 of the principles from the Code of Practice. So being user-led, thinking about digital skills and adaptability. So in March 2020, we really shifted our focus very much from how do we support our volunteers to provide great programs, to how do we support young people and their families, whether they're a Scout or not, with really fantastic non-formal education materials and support. We of course supported our volunteers as well to continue to run their really great programs that they were running, but that real shift was a really interesting pivot for us at Scouts, which led to us launching the Great Indoors, which is the first badge that was available ever to Scouts and non-Scouts. In adapting the programme, we tried out lots of different ways of doing that, whether that be lots of Zoom-based work, sessions for young people led by volunteers. We ran camps and lots of other interesting sessions that were run centrally as well. So really interesting to try out and try out and test out and learn different ways of doing things. So really leaning into that test and learn, user-led, and really pivoting what we do. So we really, in addition, we also, like many charities, had a big fundraising gap. So we used the opportunity to try out some new ways of fundraising. We led a campaign which was actually All for Children in Need as our first campaign. And that was really heavily led by our youth members and our ambassadors, who we really made the most of. And that was a really interesting learning piece for us, and how we might do fundraising digitally, using digital tools to capture people's involvement, but also using fundraising platforms to raise those funding, and also our work on social media. So really lots and lots of elements that we were able to test and learn. We also changed the way that we worked internally to deliver all of that work. We paused most of our strategic planning. Most of our strategic plan really still kept our focus on our strategic aim of Skills for Life, but really pivoted to having lots of product teams and using tools like Agile and Kanban to really drive forward our work. The other thing that we did is we actually worked with quite a lot of partners. We were really fortunate that we managed to partner with Zoom during the pandemic. We've just recently won an award for that work, which was a really amazing achievement, and delivering out 8,000 licenses to our volunteers locally. We also partnered up with Barclays Digital Eagles, who really helped us drive up skills for our volunteers, and we also buddied up with our colleagues in Girl Guiding, who were also facing really similar challenges in terms of how do we support our volunteers with those digital skills that they needed. So we did put a lot of focus and time into how do we support our staff, particularly those coming back from furlough, who all of a sudden landed in this new way of working. They hadn't been involved or progressed in using Scouts. We were using Teams and a Microsoft platform. So all of a sudden you're landing in a space where you hadn't had that opportunity to work before, and you hadn't grown with the rest of the organisation. So providing lots of training and lots of support to our staff members, but also to volunteers who are running really great programmes. Focusing on our volunteers, we spent a lot of time spending small focus groups and lots of testing and learning, and lots of use of data to support our decision making. and focusing on the content that was most popular, and then building on that as well. So lots of things for us went really well. And I think for me, it was really gaining that understanding that digital had a real purpose and a real aim for the organisation, and would really help underpin the future work that we did. So that focus on digital has really increased across the organisation, which is really exciting.
Now, we're going to use a tool called a retrospective, which some of you may have done before. If you haven't, don't worry, I'm going to explain what it is. The beauty of this tool, and why I'm going to walk you through it step by step as we go through it today, is that once you've started using it, you can actually apply it to anything. It's that simple and that useful. And I have worked with charity leaders before where they take this framework and they might pause during a project and use it to look back at how it's gone so far and where they need to go from here. So you can apply it to all things on and offline, really, as a way to pause and reflect and assess how things have gone, and where there are areas for improvement and what actions you need to take. So we'll be following that structure as we go through today. Now, if we were all in a room together, and perhaps one day we will be, what I would be doing at this point, which is equally applicable to setting up the activity online as well, is just running through some points around the kind of the sort of scene setting for the exercise, the conditions for doing it in. So the whole point of the retrospective is to look at it as part of continuous improvement. So really it's about taking a breath and looking at where we go from here, and quite often a longer term project, or maybe even a short term more intense project, you might do this a bit more regularly as well. So it's a very versatile tool. If you were doing it just with your team, I think it's quite helpful to look at it in the context of there's nothing here about judgment. It's very much about just getting all the ideas out on the table and looking at where you can go from here. So I think it's important, if you're taking away this exercise to run internally, just to have those pointers in there. So where do we begin? Let's begin by looking at these three areas, and we're going to take them step by step. So firstly, we're going to look at what went well. So that was why we were trying to get you thinking about achievements and what you were most proud of. So we'll look at what went well first, and we'll get you to put your ideas in the chat. Then we'll have a brief discussion. Then we'll move on to what could be improved. Then we will look at next steps, and then we'll do a bit of a summary of key points